What's up, everyone? This is John.
And I'm Ellie, and we are LiquidHaus, and this is HausKeeping, where we chat about all of the things that we're up to and all of the things, period. Welcome back to another episode. Thank you so much for being here. We are just kind of continuing on our last episode, CES, but kind of expanding it in, and we're going to go over a couple products that we've recently got in, as well as go over our build experience from a couple of our CEF builds. So let's get into it.
So we've got a few different builds coming up along with a few that we have just wrapped up, but we're really excited to talk about at least the preliminary discussion about the two builds that we're about to start. And that is with the Phanteks Evolve X2 and the HAVN HS420. And so with the X2, let's talk a little bit about how it's primarily an AIO only case, right?
Yeah. Let's just talk about first impressions at first.
Sure.
I mean, we see that it's a beautiful, we got the white and silver one. So it's this beautiful brushed silver. I think aesthetically, it's a really pretty case with this like very hover effect motherboard panel. And then obviously the full glass on it.
Yeah, no, the glass was... So it's tough. It's tough for me personally because, and it seems to be that the message is kind of shared similarly with some of the other reviewers out there. More specifically, Dimitri from Hardware Canucks, right? We both had the opportunity to see the X2 both in kind of render form before it even existed, and then we saw it at Computex where they had a really crazy prototype being shown, and then now we're seeing the end result of basically that long trajectory. And it was basically a year and a half, 2 years that they've been working on this case.
Yeah, and I do see the point that you're trying to make as you feel that maybe the final production one is a little bit more neutered than the one that we had seen originally.
Yeah, because you bring up the fact that the motherboard panel, gives off that hovering effect, right? And beforehand, it definitely was the case, right? They wanted the entire motherboard to look like it was hovering in this space of glass, and they've pulled back that a bit. I mean, the panels connect at the top and bottom, but it still emanates that, right?
Yeah.
And we can definitely attribute that more with specific hardware, if you will. But the glass also kind of frustrates me a little bit because we're dealing with the inside panels being nice and curved, but then you've got glass on each facet that aren't conjoined in any way. There's no bent glass to like mirror that brushed.
Right. And you think it would look better as if it contoured almost the interior of the case, the exterior contoured the interior of the case.
Yeah.
Whereas I kind of see it as it maybe a play on the hovering effect of the motherboard tray. I think that maybe the glass makes it look like a display case of something like on display in a museum almost, if you will.
Absolutely. I can see that.
And that is the kind of the rounded aluminum silver panel is...
I like how you're looking at it.
I am looking at it right now, yeah.
It's just off camera.
It's just right over there.
But we had to hear last
episode. It's almost like a pedestal.
Yeah, absolutely.
For whatever you have on display. Sure. But one thing that I want to mention, kind of going back to how we've kind of scaled back, or Phanteks scaled back on some of the final features, was in the prototype, I remember there being a channel for all of your cabling in the back. Yep. And that was completely omitted in the final production.
And something like that, I think that's also a thing to consider when displaying new cases and generating the hype. Is you've got this expectation that you generate, and then once the final product comes out, there's of course going to be a bit of bias in terms of like, oh, we really like the old one versus the new one.
Yeah.
But I think altogether the X2 is a really nice case, and it's a fun case. And, the builds that we've seen already have been water cooled primarily.
Which is hilarious considering that it's not
It's not
meant
at all
to
a water
be.
cooling case,
Yeah.
and it's for sure designed to be an AIO only case,
Yeah.
and that's fine. There's always going to be a place for that, right? Especially with SIs, which we feel like this case might.
Yeah, we definitely feel like this might be a case for the SI. It's primarily made for them to just pump them out. And that's okay. It's a really pretty case. Another exciting thing about the build is actually we got the ARC, the Intel ARC 850 in.
Yeah,
That's
the
our
B850.
the B850, and we're so excited. It's our first one that we got, and
It was
so
the only one that Newegg allowed us to buy. I mean, we've got notifications on all the cards, and I'm pretty sure scalpers are on the limited edition ones because that was primarily the card that gave us the most grief on Newegg, where it would say it was in stock. You'd refresh the page and it would show add to cart, and then you would add to cart and check out and say, oh, we don't have this in stock.
Yeah,
I remember this from the 30 series times, and that was definitely a scalper thing that was going on. So
well,
that's
we got
fun.
ours. We got the Onyx. It's a white card. I love it, and
it looks great. We haven't really messed with this brand before. This is a new AIB, but the build quality is nice. The aesthetics are perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a great design.
The form factor's solid. I mean, this would be a perfect SFF GPU for a lot of different builds out there, but
for sure,
it definitely matches the flow of the X2 in terms of like, I mean, the X2 is like a short case too, right? It's like short. It's not long,
right?
Like you would expect. It's a bit
interesting smaller than you would think. Yeah, you're right.
So I feel like the GPU length actually kind of matches that expectation a bit.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
We do have a couple build plans we're going to do. We did mention that we'll do a water-cooled build. We'll also just do like a normal AIO build. They have an AIO that they sent that matches it that will come out at a later date that we'll use. But we'll kind of get a better build experience in it. I do like these cases. I'm hoping for an NV3 eventually from Phanteks, though.
Yeah, you're still a team NV3.
I'm still team NV, and I'm waiting for an NV3.
Yeah, no, the NV line is actually a spectacular line of cases, and it's funny because you can get to a certain point where your past success starts affecting your future success, right? Like the NV line was such a home run.
100%.
That now the pressure's on, right? To maintain that status quo. So, but I feel like the X2 is, it's unique enough to
it stands out on its own. Yeah.
It stands on its own. So we are excited to get going with it. Well, we've got also another build planned, and it's the one right behind us right here, and it is in the HAVN HS420. And I gotta say, this case blew us away.
I'm like looking at it right now with the glass on there.
Yeah, the glass. I know. In terms of like obviously we've done tons of builds with glass, right? But I would say in terms of clarity, the glass is like it almost doesn't exist.
Clear.
Yeah, it's crystal clear. And not only that, but it's also it's bent, and it's a bent panoramic style glass, kind of like what I was hoping with the X2, but we didn't get. But the glass is spectacular. The bezels on the edge really seal it in and just create this insanely clean aesthetic.
I would even say like just the unboxing experience of the HAVN was actually really wonderful as well. They had everything marked, everything really nicely branded. It just was like you can tell it just is a very solid.
You could tell
design.
That they cared.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? They cared every aspect of the experience. And I mean, we haven't even finished building in it, right? This is just a general mock-up, but like the overall experience of what you would get just unboxing a case. Oh yeah, I'm excited to build with this case, blah, blah, blah. And then you get it and you see it and you're like, oh my gosh. You're already blown away by every other detail. And then you open it and it's just something else entirely. We're really excited to do a build. I mean, it's so funny because when we first saw photos of it, I mean, it's so funny too, because we saw this at Computex, but it was like one of the last things we were seeing as we were walking out of the show floor, like on the last day. Believe it or not. I mean, there's still so much at Computex to see that we missed a ton. And we were traveling the floor every single day, but we saw this on the way out, blew us away, didn't have time to really check it out, but definitely left an impression. And then we started seeing photos of people having it, and it was like, okay, yeah, it's looking cool. But then get it in person, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah, it's pretty magnificent, and we have some really awesome hardware that we're pairing up with it.
Yeah, so far we've got the Z890 Apex from ASUS, and then of course we had to have a 4080 Super white Strix card in there, which would feel like the tail end of the GPU where
is very matching
it
with
matches.
the aesthetic.
Yeah.
The whole, I'm just
Yeah.
like, I'm kind of speechless because I don't know why I haven't looked at it with the glass on. It looks so good.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful case, and honestly, I think we kind of hit it out the park with the hardware choices
I know, right?
as well. Yeah.
It's funny because like, and in the photos, we're seeing that the storage plates on the side, which you would at this point these days have side intake. We see this, we see the storage plates, and we're like, okay, yeah, that's obviously an option. We'll probably fill it with water cooling or some aspect or another. But then seeing it, and you're like, I kind of want to leave it.
Yeah, and there's also one of the accessories that they include is a mount for you to put up a monitor too.
Yes, they include a Visa mount.
A Visa mount, yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually looking at it last night. I have to look at it more and mess with it and actually mount up a monitor to it, because it looks like, at first I thought it was just going to be basically a 140 or a 120 mount to a Visa mount, which is standard 100 mil by 100 mil. And but it's a little bit different. I think it needs to be mounted a very specific way. I think there's some adjustment there, but it's actually awesome that they would include this Visa mount accessory for the build itself. Because I mean, you think about builds with screens, and we've seen more than a few at this point, but they just straight up said, hey, you know what? There's a lot of monitors out there with Visa mounts. Have a bracket on us.
Yeah.
If you want to change it up and put a screen in there, go for it. And they can fit it for sure. As you can see, there's a lot of room right there.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're looking at a full length Strix card, and there's still plenty of room in the front. This is most definitely a case that can handle 420 mil radiators, and right there, that's not really a common thing to see in cases. And so with that, with the fact that you can do a bottom 420 and a top 420, it kind of makes us feel like the side doesn't really need a radiator.
Yeah.
Maybe we can pull off some sort of side intake that can still utilize some of those storage plates. But I gotta say, like, the full white bare minimum aesthetic that we're seeing right here with this preliminary mock-up, I feel like that's the vibe that we should try and keep.
Yeah, then just see through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
And we had said on Instagram, so like, for instance, another huge thing that we're not talking about yet is the fact that we can perfectly fit our Steelkey Customs collaboration D12 distro in these rear intake spots that HAVN introduced. Now, this is like an interesting intake outtake or intake exhaust type scenario with this dual fan on the rear I/O panel. I don't think we've seen that before, at least not with two fans in this configuration. Obviously, with your NV7, we've got a dual 120 at the top by the I/O.
Yeah.
But in terms of like separating them, I don't know if we've seen that before. And then they've also kind of doubled down on that by making this round aesthetic for these fans. And it took us a few hours of just sitting there staring at it, trying to figure out what we need to do. It's like, you know what? That's going to be a perfect lineup with our D12s. And we had to pull a little bit of a funny move to get them mounted in there, because the mounts, the primary mounts for those fan intake and exhaust are 140s, and obviously our D12s are 120. So we had to use our 120 to 140 adapters that we've used in other projects that we've talked about here in the past. But it was a perfect fit.
Yeah, it worked out really nicely.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna keep that tubing run. I just wanted to do that for fun,
just to show you.
Yeah, just for fun, like just to show that there are D12s there.
Yeah.
It's not a an illusion that you're seeing that you're like, oh,
An illusion.
Is that a distro that I'm seeing out a fan there, you know? But yeah, no, this build or this case is insane. And really thinking about taking down the Cube 500 and the Nano QR out of the way at my desk and
putting this up there.
Yeah, because this is really sleek.
Yeah.
Gotta say, I gotta hand it to the HAVN team. You guys knocked it out of the park, so well done.
Yeah, absolutely. We met a couple of the couple of the people on the team at CES, and they were actually just really like nice and humble people too.
Insanely humble.
And so it's just cool to see. We didn't get to look at the HAVN case, so you brought up close prior to meeting them. But then meeting them and then getting to unbox the case and seeing all the design and everything, it kind of just comes together and makes sense. And it gives you a greater appreciation for the whole product.
It was funny too, because we had a HAVN here.
Yeah.
While, I mean, for maybe a couple weeks before CES, but I mean, obviously our focus was on CES and
we just had so much to do. Yeah.
Yes, we hadn't even opened it yet, but I do wish that we had opened it prior to meeting the team. Because I feel like we would have so much more to talk about with them.
Yeah.
And I kind of regret not experiencing the case first and then talking with them. And I feel bad about that because it would have been an even more of a joyous experience and conversation to have with them, you know?
Yeah.
But you guys did a wonderful job, and I can't wait to see the next cases that you guys have.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Obviously, now we're going to talk about APNX's V1 build that we did for CES, a bit more in depth. We kind of touched it lightly on the CES coverage housekeeping episode prior, but now we kind of want to talk about our build experience in the APNX V1 case itself, the project itself, basically everything around it, what we had to do, the art direction that we were tasked with.
Yeah.
And so I mean, what would you want to start with?
Well, the APNX V1 is a new mid-tower case. I think that at this point, a lot of people have already seen it. It comes in a black and white variant, actually a couple black and white variants with some wood paneling. So you might have seen it in the wood paneling. For this one, we actually did just the pure white, and the theme that we had was Quack Hunt, which was a play on the Nintendo classic Duck Hunt. Which it was just like a really fun 8-bit game, just like an old school shooting game. And so we just kind of recreated Ducky's branding, because this was also in collaboration with Ducky, to make an 8-bit version of their logo and kind of implement it into the game. So yeah, you see on the APNX, on the Trike's cooler, you do see some fun 8-bit clouds on there that match on the Link Plus screen, the cooler on the screen.
Yeah, the prototype Link Plus GPU.
The screen on the cooler, I should say. Yeah. The Link Plus GPU. It was just, I don't know. I think that, I mean, putting it together I love theme builds. Theme builds are so much fun. We don't get to do them often enough. And they're always a challenge because typically they're not a theme that we would choose ourselves.
Right.
And
Definitely.
I genuinely love the opportunity to be able to challenge ourselves to kind of think differently than we typically would. And this was absolutely that. We don't do a lot of original art. This was all original art.
Yeah, that was all original art that Ellie had done, pixel by pixel drawing.
Yeah, which is so much fun to do pixel art. And then we did
something else.
Yeah, and then we did the 3D printing. So this is right when we got our 3D printer. Well, we had gotten our 3D printer right back in, I think, November for Black Friday, but we didn't break it out until it was time for this build. And we had even discussed,
which sounds funny because CS obviously is in January and we're talking about Black Friday and not using the 3D printer until working on the build. So that basically kind of translates to, we were doing the majority of the work in December, but that's unfortunately how some or most CS projects go, because you've got everyone gearing up for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and then you've got Christmas right after it, and then New Year's, and these brands are working around all of those aspects while also trying to get out samples or prototypes of certain parts that aren't out yet.
I mean,
and so it all comes together.
we were working with Link Plus, and they're in Germany. So it was to kind of work with them to have them order the MDPCX sleeving to custom sleeve the unit. I mean, everything takes time. So of course, yeah, I will even say, I mean, I don't know, but like that one, we had that one done earlier than we would probably have most builds done in the past.
It's true. We did knock out a bunch of progress really quickly, and it is thanks to the 3D printer.
Yeah.
There were elements that we wanted to add to the build to help the theme out throughout and keep that consistency on the inside and outside of the build itself.
Yeah.
That our previous methods of design and fabrication, primarily sheet metal, just wasn't going to cut it for this style of build. And we had tried a few different iterations of that, and it just wasn't jiving. And luckily we had the printer for about a week just sitting in its box. And it's like, you know what, do we just try and
do it,
figure this out as quickly as possible and see what we can do?
There were times where we had used our normal hose clamps that you see us use from Color Fittings, the anodized ones, and even we put a green anodized one on there, and we might have some footage or something to show you that. And we kind of looked at it. It was the perfect match. The color was the perfect match.
It was actually a really nice match.
But it just wasn't fitting the vibe of the overall build. So we were like, we're going to absolutely have to do an 8-bit hose clamp and match it with if you see at the very bottom of the build, you see, what would you call those? Pass-throughs, I guess. It's like a tubing pass-through.
I mean, we've never really done something like that before.
But just 8-bit things to kind of guide the tubing.
Yeah, just tube guides.
The thing is that we were not only with the theme, but the challenge with fitting all of these units. So we bought, we supported another builder, Modding Cafe in Vietnam, is he? And he does a water-cooled version of the Trike's cooler.
What's the adapter?
Yeah, the water-cooled adapter for the Trike's cooler.
It really only... It's basically the tubing that you see go into the AIO head of the Trike's cooler. Those tubes are held by just little clips. And once you pull the clips out, you can essentially pull the tubes out that are just O-ringed in.
Yeah.
And he basically made an acetal version of those same fittings that go into the AIO head itself, and then with acetal made it into like a G1 quarter adapter, and really slick design. And we absolutely wanted to help support him. Yeah. So we got that from him. But
also the Link Plus unit being kind of a giant unit with the 360, the radiator on it being that you have to have on the intakes, you have to have the cooling units. It kind of made it a challenge for us to kind of fit it in that size of a case. The V1 was just kind of a challenge.
Yeah, the radiator, and we talked about this a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
It was definitely a pain point in terms of fitment. We had discovered more when we were talking with the Link Plus team at CES, that those additional end tanks on the radiator itself are basically extra reservoirs on both ends of the radiator, and there are extra reservoirs, little chambers inside the GPU block itself as well. So you can orient the GPU, the pump that's in the GPU, and the radiator in whatever orientation, and you don't have to worry about cavitation, the pump not sucking in fluid and getting in air instead and ruining the pump.
Air distribution.
They absolutely thought about that. And so that's one of the caveats to that design, is it's there for a reason.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating. In fact, the design of this Link
really
Plus
cool.
cooler.
And we are hoping that Link Plus, we see a ton more from them in the future.
And we know that we will be seeing a ton more in the future.
Yeah, they've got a killer product, and we were insanely lucky to be able to work with them on this build. It wasn't easy, but we were able to get something fun together, and it was really exciting, and it blew everyone away at the show. And
I think it got some good attention.
Yeah.
It was fun and flashy, and right as you walked into the PGG or Pro Gamers Group, Pro Gamers Wear booth, it was right there.
It was right there, and it was so bright and colorful, and it immediately got your attention. And I got to say, one of my favorite parts is the back, where you can mount the keyboard too. It's just like a little hanger, but I wanted to make it like an 8-bit version of it. And that was a fun, like, little last minute addition that we feel like
to tie in the whole Ducky theme.
Yep.
Yeah, Ducky's new keyboard, which we'll be seeing more on.
Yeah, which you will be seeing more of. It was a very sneak peek type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So other than that, we also had our Project Alphacool build, which was at Alphacool's suite at the Planet Hollywood Casino and Hotel in Vegas during CS of 2025. And wow, we had a lot of fun on this, and we are so insanely stoked that we had the opportunity to do something like this, especially because it was our own design from top to bottom. It wasn't done any specific case that some brand wanted to work us with on, and therefore kind of keep us confined in said box. We were able to go all out on this type of build, and we were so excited to do so.
Yeah, I think that I think our biggest thing is we really want to push and challenge. I mean, right here, you even just see it that we're obviously pushing the boundaries of weight distribution.
Yeah, a lot of people do feel like this build is barely able to stand upright.
Yeah.
That couldn't be further from the truth. This build is actually insanely stable. It's not going anywhere. The way that we designed it and implemented the design kind of all works very cohesively with one another. You have components that are counterweighting each other, and so everything is meant to be in its exact spot, and it works perfectly. And we can't wait until we start doing a limited run with the chassis. But
yeah, and that is something that is huge on the top of our list. So in the next couple of months, definitely Q1, you'll be seeing more about getting a limited run of these ISO chassis out there for you guys to have.
But for this build, our primary sponsor obviously was Alphacool. We also then got sponsor support from MSI, and then Intel Gaming came into the for a clutch CPU, and then we're able to get obviously custom cables made by our friends at Cable Mod, and then the RAM was sponsored by Kingston. So this is a full sponsored build. Obviously, we are featuring our forever friend Nils at MDPCX with some sleeve tubing.
Yep.
And then we also had a bit more fun with 3D printing as well, and that was definitely not part of the plan.
No. But when you have a 3D printer, you literally just 3D print everything.
And like Ellie had said, we had finished up the Quack Hunt build a bit earlier than we had expected. So we had a little bit more extra time. So it's like, well, if we've got more extra time, maybe we can implement a few 3D designs that might actually help the build out in certain areas. And, there is one aspect about this design that can be a bit of a challenge, and that's the back side where the cable management is mainly located in. And so I kind of wanted to just see what we could do with that. And we came up with this cowl, if you will, basically just hides a portion of the cable management, not all of it,
right?
But just a portion. We tried to implement the cowl's design to kind of mimic a bit of the parts that we are using, so there's a bit more cohesion in the flow. And then the back side of the top 360 radiator, I mean, it was just bare radiator fins. Being that it was at the top of the build and therefore kind of pretty...
a focal point.
Yeah, it's pretty visible point. We wanted to kind of emulate the same grill design on the main L portion of the ISO. And so we mimicked that same grill design, but made it into a 3D version of that same sheet metal design, and then said, hey, you know what, let's throw our logo in there and see what happens. And it turned out pretty well. And then we had a little bit of fun, as you can see, with the tube clamps on this one. It did a little bit more abstract as opposed to the 8-bit. Being that we used all Alphacool parts, we had to use their fans as well. Their fans were a bit tricky because their fans weren't daisy chainable. And we kind of died inside a little bit, knowing that we had to then deal with the cable management for the fans.
Oh my
with
gosh.
the fans being such a big focal point, right? So having
that
to
took
do
a whole day of custom
just
wiring.
2 solid days.
2 days,
of
wiring.
Because we also had to wire in all the RGB separately from the PWM.
Oh my gosh. And that was way after the fact too.
So that was fun, but
PC building is fun.
Yeah, right. But it was absolutely worth it because it's such a polished build. And it's funny because this is our only 420 prototype ISO chassis, and we could just get another one made, but obviously trying to save money when we can. I think the next time we produce anymore, it's going to be for the limited run.
Yeah.
So we are going to tear this one down probably pretty soon.
Yeah.
There are so many more variations of the ISO build that you can do that we want to show you guys before we release the chassis as a limited run. This is just one variation. And it sounds crazy because you look at it and you're like, what the hell am I even looking at? Right. But this is literally one of like maybe 15 different iterations or ways you can configure hardware around. So really excited to tear this one down and actually show you guys the different options of build with the ISO chassis. Oh, hey, sweet lady.
Yeah, hello. You want to join us now?
She says, I have something to say.
I have an announcement, please.
You want to lay down right here, my sweet love?
Well,
oh wow. Big relaxing. Yeah, give me that paw. Hey, how's it going?
That was pretty much it.
Yeah, so that basically covers this episode of HausKeeping.
I definitely, real quick, because I will forget, we will be, if you're interested, we kind of want to put up some of these 3D print designs on our website. So if you are interested, like, and what I mean by that is like the hose clamps and...
Yeah, there's going to be a few different designs that we feel could help other PC builders out there.
Or if you just like them, they're already designed, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what we'll do is we'll definitely have an option to have the 3D print design available. But if you are also not able to get it printed yourself and would like it printed,
we can work something out.
Yeah,
you'll just have to email me and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Because I mean, if that can be the case and you guys are interested in something like that, maybe we get a second 3D printer and have one dedicated for that kind of stuff.
We'll figure it out.
But just let us know in the comments. Yeah. And please
join our Discord.
Yes, our Discord.
Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on other social media sites, Blue Sky, Threads. I don't really know anymore, but we're definitely on Instagram and we're definitely on Discord. So check out our link tree. It will show all of the things. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. Please leave a comment below. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't. And we'll catch you on the next one, you guys.